Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are here to talk about the brand new launch from Urban Decay, and that is the Stay Naked Foundation and Concealer. So if that is something you're interested in watching, you're in the right place. We're about to get into it.
I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf.
Alright guys, so Urban Decay has launched a brand new collection and it's called the Stay Naked collection. And it comes with a couple of different things. We have everything from a new lip product to a new blending sponge, and then we have a concealer and a foundation, all of which we're going to talk about today. First, I do want to talk about the liquid lipstick. So this lipstick is actually not a lipstick. This is called kind of a glassy lip stain, I believe is what they call this. It retails for $22, which, considering the component and how much product is in here, I think is just a little bit overpriced for what the product is. When I first looked at the component, I actually really like it. It has Vice etched on the outer packaging here. However, this does look like it's this really nice gold metal type of look, but it's not. It's actually just plastic, which I think cheapens it a little bit, just personal preference. But it is just a small liquid lipstick in comparison to other liquid lipstick components out there, even their own Vice liquid lipsticks that come in the larger components. This one just seems to be a lot smaller, and I'm not sure if that's because this is considered technically a lip stain and maybe they think you're going to use a little bit less product. I'm not really sure, but that's about it with the component. It has a typical paddle applicator, nothing really special about that. Now, the formula itself is a very, very interesting, you guys. It is a gloss when you first put it on, but there is this underlayer of a stain that happens on your lips as you're putting the gloss on your lips. You're also getting this staining of the lips happening underneath, and it's just a very odd feeling formula. Now, the gloss, you know, it wears off fairly quickly, but the stain that's there on your lips, boy, that is there to stay for quite a while. And after about a minute of having the product on my lips, you could definitely notice a distinct shift in the tone of the color of the liquid lipstick. Now, the reason they call this lip chemistry is because it's supposed to shift with your own personal pH balance in your skin. And that is supposed to make this a personal type of shade that's going to be your perfect shade. Unfortunately, I really didn't like my shade. This was not a shade that was flattering to me and my skin tone. I picked out the shade Sideways, and I don't know if it was just the shade that I picked out. I expected it to look like the picture, and that's really not what it ended up looking like on my lips. But in addition to that, I really didn't like the formula. At first, it seemed like it was going to be glossy and nice, but then you feel like you have this kind of film on your lips underneath the gloss. And even after I got a makeup wipe just to kind of get that off of my lips because I didn't like the way it felt, the stain that was left over on my lips, you know, I didn't really mind, but boy, that stain is just not going to go anywhere for quite a while. It wasn't anything too bad. I was able to cover it up with another liquid lipstick and go on about my day. That's fine. But I just wasn't a fan of this product. I wasn't a fan of the formula and the way that it felt on my lips, and I absolutely wasn't a fan of the color. So maybe if you like a lip stain, I just really don't like stains overall as a product. But if that's something that you like, you might be interested in this at $22. You know, I'm just not sure. For me, this one was a pass. Next up, let's talk about the blending sponge. So they did come out with a new blending sponge. This is what it's called. It's called the Build and Blend Sponge. And it's kind of this silicone sponge, blending sponge hybrid product. You have a blending sponge with a silicone sponge insert that's just kind of laid up here on the side of the blending sponge. And the idea behind this is if you have like a palette that you have your foundation squirted on, that you can pick the product up with the silicone side and apply it without the product being absorbed by the sponge, and then you can flip it and use this side to actually blend it out. And you can continue to do that and build up your product and blend it out, thus the reason it's called the Build and Blend Sponge. However, I think the idea itself is interesting and innovative and different, and we're always asking these makeup companies to push themselves and come up with different and unique things, and that definitely is what this is. However, I am just not a fan of this. I think the design of it is lacking. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about up close, but I'm dealing with this silicone insert is already wanting to tear away from the sponge itself, and I've only used this sponge 3 different times. I've used it 3 times and I've washed it once, and it's already starting to kind of pull away. The Urban Decay print on here looks like it has some kind of a plastic overlay or film on it, and that's already starting to like peel off a little bit, and that's going to be annoying. So I think the construction of it is lacking. In addition to that, it's $18, so it's only $2 cheaper than an actual beauty blender. For me, I would just rather have a beauty blender. And you know, I think I might be spoiled a little bit too, because for $15 you can also get the new Dose of Color beauty sponge, which I think is much softer, and I am really in love with this thing. So maybe that's why I'm having a hard time with this one, because it's not as soft. It is just a little bit firmer than that beauty sponge, and I don't know, I just am not a fan of the silicone sponge being part of this whole tool. So this one was a pass for me, but again, $18, Build and Blend Sponge, part of the collection. All right, you guys, so let's go ahead and get into the foundation. Now, the foundation does have 50 shades for you to choose from. I don't know why. I think I read somewhere it was 49 shades, but it is 50 shades for you to choose from. Now, they've broken this up a little bit differently than a lot of other foundations out there, and it could get a little complicated for the general population out there. So I am going to try and break this down for you guys as easy as I can, just to try and make it really simple for you to be able to pick out your shade. One thing I will strongly recommend is that you actually go in store to pick out your shade. Try not to buy this foundation online, simply because what you might think would be darker because of the way it falls in line in the shade line might be darker. If you look at 30 and you think, oh, that's too light for me, I should go with 31. 31 is not necessarily going to be darker than 30. So it doesn't follow the usual norms. You really need to pay attention to the way that they suggest that you actually pick out your foundation shade. Now, they do recommend that you watch, or actually I'm going to recommend that you watch the tutorial online at the Urban Decay Cosmetics website. They do have a tutorial that kind of walks you through how to pick out your specific shade range. But just to give you an overview, there are a couple of things that you'll need to know in order to pick out your shade range. For example, I am going to go ahead and tell you my specific color. My specific color is 40 CP, and that's my shade. So my shade is 40 CP. 40 is my shade intensity. C is my master tone, and P is my undertone. So the way that this works is the first thing you need to identify is what they call your shade intensity. There are 9 choices to choose from, and I'll show you the shade intensity choices here. Now, the shade intensity choices range everywhere from ultra light to ultra dark. You have everything in between: fair, medium, medium dark, deep, etc. So there's 9 of those to choose from. You want to choose your shade intensity first. For example, if you choose the medium light category, then that puts you in the 40s when it comes to your number range. If you choose the light, then that puts you in like the 30s. So pick your shade intensity first. After that, you want to choose your master tone. Your master tone, you only have 3 to choose from. That's warm, neutral, and cool. So you have to pick one of those 3 master tones. That'll narrow down your choices a little bit more. Once you've got those narrowed down, you need to decide what your undertone is. And if I'm not mistaken, they have 7 different undertones in this line. And they range all the way from green, blue, pink, yellow, orange, red, neutral. So there are 7 different choices for you when it comes to your actual undertone. So that's what that number represents, that 40 CP. 40 is my shade intensity, C is my master tone, P is my undertone. And to be honest with you, 40 CP goes completely the opposite of what I typically am. Typically, I fall in normally like a light or light medium category, and then I usually am very neutral when it comes to my undertones. And this perfect match ended up being a cool shade with a pink undertone, which is very unusual for me personally. So having said that, make sure that you guys go in and swatch this product. That's why I make that particular recommendation. I ended up getting online multiple shades because, again, I wasn't really sure how this system worked. I got 30 NN, which is 30 neutral. I got 31 neutral, and then I got 40 CP. And of course, the 40 CP ended up being my actual shade match. But I do want to swatch these out for you guys just so that you can see the particular shades, so you can get a better idea of what these shades look like. I do want to take a minute to talk about the component before we get into the shade swatches. Now, the only downside to this component is similar to the liquid lipstick component. I think that this top being plastic kind of cheapens the whole component. I wish that this wasn't plastic. I wish this was metal. Having said that, this is plastic as well. It's not glass. I am torn as to whether or not I would like for this to be glass because I really like the durability of a plastic component when it comes to foundation, but I don't know. I think I would just like to have a glass bottle for the luxe aspect of it. However, having said all of that, this is a beautiful component. I love how long it is. I like the elegance of it. I love the way that this plastic is cut. I love the beveling that's going on with this plastic right where it says stay naked. I like the color choices. I think this is a gorgeous component, even though it is cheapened a little bit by this plastic top. Having said that, it does also have a pump, which is fabulous. We all love a good pump. So overall, I think the component is a win. This is a full fluid ounce of product, so you are getting a normal dose of foundation in here, which is great. So yeah, the component for me was a win. I actually really like it, even though the top is plastic. And that's bugging me for whatever reason. But I do like the component. I think it's cute. All right, so let's get into the swatches so that you guys can see what these look like. And again, that's 30 NN, 31 NN, and 40 CP. All right, you guys, so there are a couple of claims when it comes to this foundation that are pretty astronomical. Number one, there's the 24-hour claim that we all know and love from this foundation. But in addition to that, they also say that it's waterproof and breathable and flexible, and that you're not going to know that you have anything on your skin. It really does sound like it's going to be a perfect foundation. When it comes to application, I will say this. Application is tricky with this particular product simply because it does set very quickly. So I would recommend that you kind of work in sections, which I do anyway when I apply my makeup. I tend to work, like I'll do here and then I'll go up here and then I'll do this side and then I'll go up here. So I normally work in sections, especially when I'm testing out a product because I don't know how long it's going to take to actually set down. But this one sets quickly, so definitely work in sections. I am going to show you guys the application process here though, just so you can see what I'm talking about. And I did use this bad boy for application because I was really forcing myself. By this time, this is actually like my third or fourth time wearing this foundation. So by this time, I was kind of forcing myself to really get into this sponge because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just not liking it because I was being picky. I wanted to give myself some time to actually get used to working with it. So you'll see me using this sponge to actually do the application, but in the end, just not my favorite way to apply this particular foundation. But let's get into the application process here while I go over some of the claims of this foundation with you. All right, you guys, so they say find your naked truth with this Stay Naked Weightless Liquid Foundation. Again, this is a vegan formula. It is a buildable medium coverage liquid foundation. It is going to be a true medium. It is not a full coverage beat. It is just going to be a true medium foundation. I found that to definitely be the case, although you can get some pretty decent coverage out of this. It definitely evens out your skin tone, and it definitely makes everything look really nice and smooth. So from a cover perspective, it does have quite a lot of pigment in it for a medium finish foundation. Now, it's also this very kind of real skin matte finish is the only way I can really describe the finish. It's not a flat matte. It's more of a very natural matte finish. So again, it is waterproof. They're claiming this is waterproof, so this is going to perform really well out in really hot weather when you're sweating, etc. It is a long wearing foundation, so it does lock down fairly quickly, but it is incredibly lightweight. It really does feel like you're wearing nothing. It's a very breathable, flexible formula that kind of moves with you. So you don't really feel any of that cakiness on your face either, which is really, really nice. The color itself stays very true. So it's a very stay true color that doesn't oxidize. So the color that you get is the color that it's going to stay when you first apply it, which is really nice. It also doesn't accentuate your pores. It does help to minimize pores, which is great. I absolutely love that as well. And then, of course, Urban Decay is 100% cruelty-free for those of you that care about that as well. One of the main reasons I like using a beauty sponge with this particular foundation better than any other tool is because it is kind of that lockdown type of formula, and it is a matte foundation. I just like the additional moisture that a damp beauty blender kind of infuses into the product. So I like using a beauty blender when it comes to this foundation. A couple of notes about this foundation. Unlike a lot of really long-lasting foundations that lock down on your skin, this, surprisingly enough, does not emphasize fine lines and wrinkles, and it doesn't emphasize texture on the skin. I was expecting for this to really emphasize a lot of my fine lines and wrinkles. I was expecting it to really kind of crack around smile lines and things like that on the face, because typically long-lasting, really locked down kind of foundations, they lock down, but then they aren't very flexible. So those particular long-wearing foundations, you'll find the longer that you wear them that they start to kind of crack and break apart a little bit. However, this foundation is very flexible. It flexes very nicely with your skin throughout the course of the day, especially really mobile areas of the face. Expression lines, marionette lines, your smile wrinkles up here when you smile or when you frown, all of those expressions that we make throughout the course of the day. This foundation really hangs tight. That was something I was super impressed with. I love the fact that it doesn't sink into fine lines and wrinkles. I've put this to the test. You guys know we've had like 110-degree days outside, and this is a ride or die foundation. I genuinely love this foundation, and I was not a fan of the first kind of naked foundation or the Urban Decay All Nighter foundation. None of those foundations really were ever a foundation that I ever really reached for on like an everyday type of basis. This is one of those foundations that you know you can put on, and 12 hours later, you're going to be able to look into a mirror and see that your face still looks good. I have not given this a 24-hour wear test. I don't think I will ever give this a 24-hour wear test, but I have worn this up to 11 hours, and I've taken it out in some really humid, nasty outdoor conditions, and the foundation holds up very, very well. I'm incredibly impressed with this formula. I think Urban Decay knocked it out of the park with this one. I absolutely love this, and it's absolutely Erica approved. I think this is an amazing foundation. The foundation itself retails for $39. I don't know why they just didn't retail it for $40, but it retails for $39, which I think is a fair price point considering what this formula is and the fact that you get a full fluid ounce, so you're not really getting shorted any product. Yeah, I think this one's a winner. So this one is absolutely Erica approved. Let's talk about the concealers. So this is what the concealers look like. It's a very similar component to the actual foundation. You have this really pretty kind of plastic component with a plastic faux metal type of lid. I don't know why that's driving me crazy, but it is. The only thing really interesting about this component is the doe foot applicator. This is a flocked doe foot applicator. It looks kind of like, you know, a ballerina toe shoe. It's got this interesting curve to it. The reason they say they put this curve on the applicator is so that it hugs different contours of the face. I guess that's understandable. I have used this for, you know, a little while now, and I'm not really sure what part of my face this would actually, you know, kind of snug up against, but it is very nice to be able to have this really precise tip here. I have found that very easy to work with when I'm using it to like blank out the top of my lid before I put eyeshadow on, but it's an interesting applicator, I will say that. Other than that, nothing really exceptional stands out about the component itself, but what does stand out about this particular product is the formulation, you guys. This is probably one of the best concealers that has come out this year in the matte category. I am not a fan of matte concealers because I have a lot of texture underneath my eyes, and typically matte concealers are way too drying for my under eyes. They show a lot of texture underneath my eyes, and I just can't wear a matte concealer underneath my eyes. I've just reached that age where I just kind of have to give up on a really matte concealer underneath my eyes. I end up having to go with something like the Jouer, which is like a soft matte that has hydrating properties to it. The It Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye, which is a very emollient under eye concealer, is another one that I always reach for because I'm at that age where I need that additional hydration. The Kaja under eye concealer is beautiful and has a lot of hydrating ingredients to it, and it's more of like a soft matte concealer. Those types of concealers, the NARS creamy radiant concealer I can wear. So I have to stick with those types of concealers. This is very, very different. Even though this claims to be a matte concealer, it is a matte concealer, but it doesn't, for whatever reason, it just doesn't dry out my under eyes like a lot of matte concealers do. Now this comes in 25 different shades, and the shade range is built out in the same way that the foundation shade range is built out. So like, for example, I have 50 NP here, which is 50 neutral pink. I also have 41 CP and 30 NN. So I'll make sure that I show you guys these three swatches so that you know at least what these three shades look like, and I'll show you that here. So again, this is an expanded range of 25 shades. There's enough coverage to really go around in this shade range lineup. Again, 9 shade intensities, 3 master tones, 5 undertones. So yeah, you guys have kind of that same structure around this particular product as well. So yeah, you know, whatever it is that you pick out in foundation, I would kind of start there when it comes to concealer. But again, this is another product that I would avoid ordering online, and I would definitely go in and swatch in store just so that you guys can see what's going to work for you and what doesn't. Like, for example, I ended up really liking the 50, which is 50 Neutral Pink. I really like this one, even though my foundation is in the 40s, and the 50s you would think from a concealer perspective is going to be like way too dark for me, and it's not, and I really like it. So it is a little bit of a curveball when it comes to picking out your shade range, but man, if you can find one that's going to be your match, this stuff is really worth it. So let me show you guys the application process here. So the one thing I can say about this concealer is that you have a little bit more playtime when it comes to this concealer than you do the foundation. It doesn't quite lock down as quickly as the foundation itself does. So you have just a little bit more playtime there. Of course, the wave tip applicator does make it easy to get a really nice level of coverage when you first apply it. I really like it. It does have kind of this real skin matte finish to it. So even though it is a matte, it's not like overly drying, which I really like. I was expecting this to be a fairly drying concealer, and it's just not. Another thing that I really like about this is that it has that same flexibility to it, which somebody like me really needs, because I have a lot of fine lines and wrinkles underneath my eyes, and obviously your eyes are a very mobile part of your face. So there's a lot of movement happening in your eyes, and that's when a lot of like matte concealers will really work their way into all of those fine lines and wrinkles, and product will settle into all those fine lines and wrinkles that I have. It'll really kind of suck the moisture out from underneath my eyes, and it'll just age my face. That's typically why I can't use a matte concealer underneath my eye. But because this is, not only does it have kind of that same long-lasting technology that the foundation has, but it also has that same flexibility. So it's locked down, and the product itself is not moving anywhere. So it's not settling into your creases. It's not settling into those fine lines, and it's not drying my skin out. So there is some kind of product in there as well that keeps my under eyes from getting too dry, which I really appreciate. Granted, every time I used this, I always made sure that I used a really good eye cream underneath it, because it is a matte formula. So I always make sure that I use a good eye cream underneath it. But I love the way this concealer looks. I love the way that it locks down. And I don't know that they have the waterproof claim with this concealer, in addition to I know they do with the foundation, but I didn't really see that with the concealer. However, having said that, I deal with a lot of really bad allergies, especially during the summertime when things are blooming and there's a lot of pollen in the air, and I deal with a lot of itchy, watery eyes. And this concealer really holds up, especially like right in here where you can tend to see your concealer start to kind of break away and bleed a little bit throughout the course of the day if you struggle with kind of teary or watery eyes. And this concealer doesn't do that. I really like both of these products, you guys, and I'm excited. So far, we've had 2 complexion launches that have both been home runs, but I really like this one. This is a beautiful launch. I don't like the sponge and I don't like the liquid lipstick, but let's be honest, these are the superstars out of this product launch. I think both of these products are so stunning. They're absolutely incredible. They worked really hard on this formulation, and it absolutely shows. The formulation is very innovative. It's something new. I don't think we've seen a formula that's quite as lightweight as this and as long lasting as this. And from a concealer perspective, I don't think I've seen a matte concealer come out that is this thin and this lightweight, and it looks so beautiful underneath the eyes, and it doesn't dry out your under eye. So I love the concealer as well. Overall, the foundation and the concealer was a home run from Urban Decay. I think they did an excellent job with this one, you guys. Let me know if you guys plan on picking anything up out of this collection. And if you are, what it is that you're looking to pick up. I would absolutely love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about this product. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Erica Approved. You should be following me over there anyway. Become part of the Approved crew. That would be great. If you're new here, welcome. We are so glad that you're here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button before you leave. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. As always, you guys, I hope all of you are very happy and very healthy, and I will see you guys in my next video. Mwah.